In 1810, a pound of sugar cost the average English worker an entire day's wages. Yet by 1900, factory workers were stirring sugar into their tea several times a day. A product that was once considered a luxury had become a daily necessity. But sugar's story does not begin in Europe. It begins nearly 10,000 years ago in the dense jungles of New Guinea. There, indigenous people discovered a tall, wild grass growing in the tropical lowlands. They pulled it from the ground, bit into its fibrous stalk, and tasted something humanity had never experienced before in that form: pure sweetness. It was sugarcane. For thousands of years, people simply chewed sugarcane for energy and enjoyment. There was no refining process, no factories, and no global trade network. Sugar remained tied to the plant itself. Gradually, sugarcane spread across Southeast Asia through migration and early trade routes. By around 3,500 BC, it had reached the Indian subcontinent, and this is where everything changed. Ancient Indian farmers learned how to crush sugarcane, boil its juice, and allow it to crystallize into a rough brown solid known as khanda. This innovation transformed sugar forever. For the first time in history, sweetness could be stored, transported, and traded over long distances. India had effectively invented sugar as a product. Sugar was considered precious and even medicinal. Physicians prescribed it for headaches, digestive problems, and other ailments. It was viewed as something valuable, almost sacred. In 326 BC, Alexander the Great marched into India. His soldiers encountered sugarcane and returned with stories of a remarkable plant, a reed that produced honey without bees. The Greeks were astonished. However, sugar remained extremely rare in the Western world. In ancient Rome, it was sold mainly as medicine. Only the wealthy could afford it, and it was often stored alongside expensive spices and healing remedies. For centuries, sugar remained a luxury. The real breakthrough came during the Islamic Golden Age. Between the 7th and 13th centuries, Arab scholars perfected sugar refining techniques. They developed methods to purify sugar crystals, producing sugar that was whiter, finer, and easier to preserve. Sugar mills appeared throughout Persia, Egypt, and North Africa. Trade networks expanded, carrying refined sugar across vast regions. By the time European crusaders reached the Middle East, sugar had already become an essential part of cuisine and medicine. The crusaders tasted it and were fascinated. Soon, sugar began flowing into Europe. Venice emerged as the center of Europe's sugar trade. Merchants imported sugar from the East, refined it, and sold it at enormous profits. For centuries, sugar was a symbol of wealth and power. Kings displayed sugar sculptures at royal feasts. Nobles stored sugar like treasure. Apothecaries locked it behind counters alongside rare medicines. If you could afford sugar, you belonged to society's elite. But Europe faced a major problem. Sugarcane requires tropical climates, and it could not be grown in most parts of Europe. In the 15th century, Portugal began establishing sugar plantations on Atlantic islands. These islands offered ideal conditions for growing sugarcane. However, sugar cultivation demanded intense labor. Workers spent long hours under scorching heat, planting, harvesting, and processing sugarcane. The work was exhausting and dangerous. Eventually, European powers turned to enslaved Africans. Millions of people were forcibly transported across the Atlantic and made to work on sugar plantations in the Caribbean and South America. The conditions were brutal. Many enslaved workers survived only a few years after arriving. Sugar did not merely benefit from slavery. It became one of the driving economic forces behind the transatlantic slave trade. By the 18th century, sugar had become one of the most valuable commodities in the world. Its profits built mansions in Europe, financed wars, strengthened empires, and fueled international trade. Yet sugar plantations also gave rise to resistance. In 1791, enslaved people in Saint-Domingue, present-day Haiti, launched the only successful large-scale slave revolution in history. Plantations burned. Armies fought for years. And in 1804, Haiti emerged as the world's first independent Black republic. The revolution sent shockwaves throughout Europe. At the same time, Napoleon sought alternative sources of sugar. Scientists discovered that sugar beets contained the same sucrose found in sugarcane. France invested heavily in beet sugar production, breaking sugarcane's monopoly for the first time in thousands of years. Then came the Industrial Revolution. Steam-powered mills increased production dramatically. Railroads transported sugar more efficiently. Refining technologies improved. Sugar became cheaper than ever before. In Britain, tea and sugar formed a partnership that transformed daily life. Sweetened tea became the fuel of industrial workers. Factories relied on sugar because it provided quick calories and inexpensive energy. By the late 19th century, sugar had spread into every aspect of modern diets. Candies, jams, cakes, and sweetened beverages became common household items. Then, in 1886, Coca-Cola was founded. Soon, sugary drinks, cereals, and processed foods became staples of everyday consumption. But concerns about sugar were growing. Research conducted during the mid-20th century suggested strong links between sugar consumption and heart disease. Yet internal industry documents later revealed that some sugar companies attempted to influence scientific discussions and shift public attention toward dietary fat instead. As low-fat diets gained popularity, manufacturers often replaced fat with sugar to maintain flavor. Consumption continued to rise. In the 1970s, scientists developed high-fructose corn syrup, a cheaper sweetener derived from corn. Food companies rapidly adopted it. By the 1980s, it had become a major ingredient in soft drinks and processed foods across America. Today, sugar is hidden in products many people rarely suspect: bread, pasta sauce, yogurt, salad dressings, cereals, and snacks. Modern societies consume more sugar than any civilization in history. Worldwide production now exceeds 180 million tons annually. Brazil is the largest producer, followed by India, the very country where sugar crystallization first began thousands of years ago. However, increased consumption has also been accompanied by rising rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Several governments have introduced sugar taxes in an effort to reduce consumption and improve public health. Yet sugar remains deeply embedded in our diets, economies, and cultures. The story of sugar is far more than a story about sweetness. It is a story of discovery, innovation, trade, empire, slavery, revolution, industry, and modern health challenges. From a wild grass growing in the jungles of New Guinea to one of the most influential crops in human history, sugar has shaped civilizations, transformed economies, and changed the lives of billions of people. And even today, its impact continues to shape the world around us.